Hello, I think everyone can hear me now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's lecture on the Color of Memory project with the University of Southern Maine artist in residence, Amy Stacy Curtis. I'm Kat Zagaria Buckley, USM's Director of Art Exhibitions and Outreach. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. A few housekeeping items. Please note that this lecture will include live transcription and American Sign Language interpretation. We'll be pinning the transcriber and the translators. If you have a question during the broadcast, please put it in the Q&A box below. And I'm just going to share my PowerPoint. There we go. We will have time for questions at the end of Amy's presentation. And finally, in housekeeping, I would be remiss in my duties as gallery director if I did not invite you to our current exhibition, Reemergence, the 2022 Art Department show. Please do stop by our gallery on our Gorham campus to see the exhibition if you have a moment. All right, onto the program. The university has had a successful artist in residence program since 1986. The program was originally designed for artists to create a work of art that would contribute to the campus collection. In 2015, our mission changed to foster temporary projects in the community. Artists give a public presentation, engage with the USM and larger community, and work with art classes during their 7-week residency. Our 2022 artist in residence is Amy Stacy Curtis. Amy is an installation artist focusing on participatory works. The Maine Arts Commission's 2005 and 2017 Individual Artist Fellow for Visual Art, and the recipient of numerous grants, including those from Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation, the Foundation for Contemporary Arts, Robert Rauschenberg Foundation, and the Samuel I. Newhouse Foundation. Amy has exhibited interactive art internationally. Amy is creating a large-scale installation in the old Westbrook High School Gymnasium, an exhibit titled The Color of Memory, which runs from March 26th through April 22nd. Amy is very interested in collaborating with USM students and faculty on this project. If you are interested in working with Amy, you are encouraged to contact her at amy@amystacycurtis.com. Okay, I don't want to take up too much of our time, so I'm going to turn the presentation over to Amy. Amy, please take us away.
Hi there. Hi everybody. It's very nice to be here. I'm very glad to be the artist in residence at USM. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm having lots of fun so far. I'm going to start by giving you a lot of context about my work, and then like during the last 15 minutes of my 45 minutes, I'm going to focus on the project just to let you know what I'm doing a little bit. So I'm mostly known for this 18-year project that I did throughout the state of Maine. It took place from 1998 through 2016. And what I did was 9 solo biennial exhibits of interactive installation in 9 different mill spaces throughout the state. Each of these exhibits was 22 months of work, and each had a different theme that I had predetermined at the start of my project. The themes were experience that I presented in 2000, movement in 2002, change in 2004, sounds in 2006, light in 2008, time in 2010, space in 2012, and Matter in 2014, and finally Memory in 2016. Part of my process in doing these exhibits was that I cleaned each mill space by hand, removing thousands of objects if it was full of stuff, sweeping the entire floor, and then hand washing the entire floor. And each space averaged 25,000 square feet. This is one of the first interactive installations that I did. This was in my first solo biennial exhibit, which was in Lewiston's Bates Mill. This piece is called Meniscus, and it's 9 14-inch tall glass cylinders that I filled with water at the start of the exhibit so that the water created an upper curvature in the glasses. You know, that point right before it's going to spill, but it doesn't spill, to that point. And then I asked each participant to maintain those 9 menisci. So if the piece looked like it had evaporated some, they were asked to add water, and I had provided eyedroppers and extra water. And that was one of 9 works that I did at that show experience. At each exhibit, I did 9 unique interactive installations. So in the end, I did a total of 81 large in scope interactive works. And I'm just showing you like 1 or 2 from each exhibit. This is one of the 9 works for my second solo biennial movement. This is called Volition 1. This is a 6-foot square of red oak into which I routed 4,624 holes. And then during the opening, I placed 9 rods into 9 holes, choosing as randomly as possible. And then I instructed the audience to remove the 9 rods and for them to place them as randomly as possible. Now, this was 20 years ago in Westbrook in the old Sebago shoe mill, so it's back to be here. Really nice to be here again 20 years later. The old Sebago shoe mill is the little mill behind the Dana Wood mill, and I used the whole second floor. It's all divided up into condos now, which is kind of sad, but good for Westbrook. So what was interesting about this space for me was observing people's different ideas of randomness, because actually most people didn't really put them randomly at all. They put most commonly 1 rod into each corner of the piece, 1 in the middle of each side, and 1 in the middle, over and over again. And then this is one of the 9 works I did for my third solo biennial, which was called Change. This was in 2004 in Brunswick, Fort Andros. This was a 23,000 square foot space that I used. So this one work was called Modulation 2. And this was the first time that I started to explore the use of these 9 specific colors. And it was kind of one of the common threads throughout a lot of these works. So the 9 colors that I explore through these works are black, white, red, yellow, blue, orange, green, light blue, and light pink. And I chose these colors because I thought they were most perceptible from each other. With this base, there is 5,184 wooden half balls that I painted so that there was equal number of the 9 different colors. So 576 of each color. And then I worked with a computer programmer to create for me a Fisher-Yates algorithm to randomize the half balls. And then I asked each participant to stand at the installation's end and look down at the base and to try to isolate each color as the one they saw. So try to just see all the red half balls. Try to make those stand out as the one that you see. And then try to isolate all the yellow half balls. and so on. And then one of the 9 works that I did for my sound solo biennial, this is called Labyrinth 3. And this is a full labyrinth that I created with tape. And the design of it is very inspired by the mills and the different bays. And I asked each participant to think of a sound they were comfortable repeating 9 times. And then I asked each person to walk the labyrinth, stopping at each closed circle to make the sound on the way in. And then on the way out, stop at each open circle on the way out. At each stop, making their sound. And I have a little recording of some UMA students participating back in 2006.
Boom. 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 Boom.
I loved watching the interpreter do that. That was amazing to watch you. It was art in and of itself. This is one of the 9 installations that I did for my 5th solo biennial, which was called Light. This is in 2008. This is 8,118 cans that I collected from my Greytown transfer station, and lots of people saved them for me as well. And it took me about 3 years to make this piece at this scale. Inside each can is a color spectrum on paper that I created in Photoshop. The entire can is lined on the inside with a spectrum that goes from red to orange to yellow to green to blue, divided back to red inside the can. And by placing the cans in the seams so that they all face the same direction, when you walked around the entire piece, the hue of the entire installation changed from red to orange to yellow to green to blue, divided back to red. This is another work that I did at Light. This is called Sort 4. It's 61,785 pony beads. There's an equal number each of the 9 different colors, so 6,865 each of those 9 different colors. I asked each participant to please remove beads from the perimeter of the piece only. And whatever you removed, you had to commit to sorting into these 9 containers until the piece was completely sorted or the exhibit ended, whichever came first. Each of my installations is prefaced with instructions that the audience is asked to read before they participate, so that you know what it is I'm asking you to do to be part of the art. This is one of the 9 works that I did at my 6th solo biennial time. This was in 2010 in the peppermill mill in Bedford. I crocheted an hour a day for an entire year, and this was the resulting form. This is 7 feet across, 9 feet across by 72 feet long. I asked each participant to undo the yarn. Whatever they undid to, place it in this box. And the base was finished when it was completely undone, or when the exhibit ended, whichever came first. It was very interesting to watch the different ways that people would participate. Some people were very, very careful about how they undid the yarn from the form, and others did it from far, like here's a fly fisherman, clearly. So they had so many different techniques, which was just so fun to watch. And here's someone just carefully putting it in the box. This is another piece from Time. This is called Relativity 2. I asked each participant to try to be in the first booth for 1 minute, and to try to be in the second booth for 2 minutes, and to try to be in the third booth for 3 minutes, without using a clock, and so on, through to the 9th booth, in which I wanted people to try to be in for 9 minutes. So you went inside and you try to be in there and guess how much the time was and try to be accurate. And then there are optional count up timers that people could use in case they were curious to know how they did. So they could push these on before they went in, and then when they came out, they could see how accurate they were. People who chose to be in all 9 booths, if they were accurate, were in the booth for 45 minutes. This is one of the installations I did at my space solo biennial in 2012. This is called Inversion 2. And there are 1,520 posts, 4x4s, of 24 different lengths, from about 1 inch tall to about 48 inches tall. And at the start of the exhibit, they all began in this point, in this configuration, this convex form, which is about 13 feet in diameter. And then nearby, I drew this chart on the floor, and each one of those posts was labeled with one of these letters. And I asked each participant to move their post to their appropriate letter. And as they do that, the piece transforms from convex to concave. This is what it looked like when it all had moved. I wanted to make myself really small and walk around in there. This is another piece at my space solo biennial. and people approached this wall and this door and couldn't see what was beyond the door till they opened it, and they asked people to progress through all the doors with a pull. And I'm just gonna play a video so you can kind of see what happened. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit.
Saying.
No, if my glasses
Oh,
are
they're
on,
on.
I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Kristen to share like that.
So do you? This is tape, or do you repaint it every day?
I don't have the time to.
Because I was smelling one
Redo it.
paint upstairs, and when I touched the pull handle,
Yeah.
it felt slippery. And I thought,
Yeah.
did you just paint that? But it's actually duct tape.
Yeah,
But because I smell it,
right.
the
You
transition
can
is
really
wet. Right.
smell the paint in here. Oh, this got shorter. It looks awesome with your hat.
That's so good. Wow.
Okay, this is 5'7".
Okay.
No, it's taller because I have shoes on.
Good thing you didn't wear that top hat you were planning.
I know, or the wig. That's so great.
The witch's hat.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, this is really short. Okay, this is under 5'7" because I can't even stand up.
This is like that. Was it floor 6.5?
Right.
You know,
Or Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Which mushroom did you eat? Now I'm getting big. Now I'm small. Okay, so
Of
now.
inside John Malkovich's head.
Oh, being John Malkovich?
Yeah.
Now we're really big. We ate big mushrooms.
So
oh my God.
did Amy say, sure, 10 people can go at one time? Did she? She wasn't cruel like that, was she?
So these doors open.
I think we may be using those doors yet.
Oh my gosh. Wow. You're such good sports. I feel like I'm in a doghouse.
It's funny.
So this piece is called Progression 3. And each space there were 9 spaces total, and they each decreased by a half a foot dimension all the way around on all 3 sides. To make a lot of times in the mill exhibits, it was always important that I comply with the code and things like that. So to appease the fire department, I made optional exits in case someone freaked out in the installation or there was emergency and they had to exit fast. This is a piece, one of 9 pieces that matter. My 8 solo biennial. This is in Parsons Field. And this is called Flux 5. And there are 720 2.5-inch tall glass vials. And at the start of the exhibit, I placed a first vial in front of all of those. This is sand that I counted over the course of 15 months. There was 562,437 grains of sand. I had removed 2 to make that number a multiple of 9. And then what I asked each participant to do was to pour the sand into the next container and into the next container and so on. So each person got to pour the vial from one container to the next, and I asked them to try not to spill the granules as you did. But of course they were gonna spill. That was part of the point of the piece. And what I wanted to do was count how much sand made it to the end at the end of the exhibit. In the end, there were 16,281 granules of sand left. And that also happened to be a multiple of 9, which I really liked. This is one of the 9 installations that I did at my 9th solo biennial. memory. This is called Labyrinth 8. And I had created 3 different maps that I wanted people to try to memorize these line drawings and then to interpret those line drawings in paths that they would walk in the square. So to memorize those paths and then to walk. And this is one of the many pieces that I've done where I'm more obviously using the audience as medium, as part of the installation, part of the sculpture. And I want to mention here that a lot of my work site would have these original concepts in my head and how they were gonna work and their sizes and configuration. But inevitably with installation art, the site really determines the ultimate size of each piece and how it's configured. So the square was really determined by the size of the bag. Another piece that I did at Memory, this is called Memoir 1. And this is important to explain this piece because the piece that I'm doing here for USM is called Memoir 2. So Memoir 1 is 99 desks, 99 books, stools, pencils, and 9 pencil sharpeners. And the books span all have a different year date. The year date spanning from 1918 to 2016, and they span thusly because the exhibit took place in 2016. So the last book had to be the present year. I asked each participant to think of a memory, determine a memory from their life, and determine what year that memory took place, and then to write the memory in the appropriate book. Or you could choose a year within your life, including the present year, and try to think of a memory that occurred in that year and write that in the book. And I encouraged people to write in up to 9 books total, each a different year memory. My goal is, and this is an ongoing work, it's meant to continue until each book within a 99-year span has 300 memories in it. So this piece will continue until all the books are filled, or until 2069, which is the year of my 99th birthday, whichever comes first. Then after I finished my solo biennial project in November 2016, about 4 months later, I became really ill. There was something very wrong. I started seeing very disturbing images in my brain, in my head, and they wouldn't stop. And I was hospitalized, and it was all very scary. And then I started to lose control of my muscles and my speech, and just losing complete control of my brain and my body all at once. It took 15 months of different doctors and hospitals and all kinds of shit to finally figure out that what had happened was I had Lyme disease. And I didn't know I had Lyme disease. And of course, it was never treated. And sometimes when that happens, it attacks your brain. And this was how my brain was affected. It took 22, and then the psychosis that I experienced lasted 22 months. And that was the hardest part of it. And it took in order to get those to finally stop, I ended up having 16 treatments of what's now called electroconvulsive therapy, which used to be called electric shock therapy. And then after that, I was able to start to focus on gaining back control of my muscles, which I've been still working on. So I've gone from 18 months in a wheelchair to a walker, and now I just use a cane quite frequently. And my speech comes and goes depending on how much stimulation there is, which is why I'm talking kind of with you right now, because I'm talking to you. So when this happened, you know, when the 4 months that I had before this all happened, I was already working in my studio again before the doctor say it's kind of like a brain injury. Before this happened, after my biennials, I was just so excited to be working in my studio without the structure of my solo biennials. Each showed 22 months of work, knowing they were going to be installed in mills, knowing each would have 9 exhibits, knowing what the themes were so early on. I was really excited about the project being done and being able to come to work in a more spontaneous way through experimentation. I thought it'd be really, really good for my growth, and it has been. After my brain injury, I'm still continuing in this vein, but my now that I identify as an artist with disabilities, limits to what I physically can do still. I've been developing concepts that are even more dependent on artist participation, not only once the exhibit is open, but also as it's being made. I worked with over 500 volunteers to make my solo biennials happen. And it was really good practice to have for working the way I do now, which is often I'm dependent on people's help a lot more, especially while I was going through the thick of it. But because a lot of people support my work and care about what I'm doing, I got a lot of help with work post brain injury up to this point to create work, including opportunities like this to make work at USM. It's another reason I'm really grateful. So becoming more dependent on people to help me create the work has also led to kind of more expansive participant collaboration beyond the exhibit walls and beyond kind of larger audiences. I'm trying to give the audience more responsibility with more projects that are ongoing and durational concepts that can occur in multiple spaces at the same time. And also trying to create works that can impact people even if they aren't directly participating with it. This is one of the pieces I did while I was still in the using the walker through lots of people's help. So I was basically having to, point my finger and explain to people what I wanted for a while. But this is called Mirror 4. Just going to explain a couple places post injury, and this is it's 1,296 cubes, and there's 140 for each of the 9 different colors. And I asked each participant to switch any color cube with any other color cube so that the piece was always symmetrical. And this was how it looked on the last day. This is about 50 feet long. And then during the pandemic, where Memoir 1 is an ongoing work, I found a way to present that virtually. People emailed their memories and I wrote their memories for them and read them out loud, and people could watch on live stream. And I'll probably present Memoir tune this way in the future as well, whenever necessary. This is another piece I did during the pandemic called Offhand, where I gave participants a lot more responsibility. This was a performative interactive work with 9 different acts, ACTS. And I was exploring symmetry and entropy, kind of like how we're not robots, so we can't be completely, utterly symmetrical to each other. We're all different and have differences. So this is a piece where I had worked with 2 participants to build this symmetrical structure, and it was all choreographed. You can see all this on my YouTube channel. But anyway, the next 2 participants were more spontaneous, and they were asked to take it apart symmetrically, moving symmetrically to each other, but they weren't given the opportunity to rehearse. So it's a really interesting contrast. And then turn 5 is a piece that I developed that participants can activate in 99 different spaces. So far, I have 41 people activating this work in their homes, offices, and studios. And I'm always looking for more participants. You can learn more about this on my website. But there are, everyone receives a 10-inch shelf with these 9 cubes, and each cube is numbered so that the first cube has 1 through 6. The second cubes have numbers 2 through 7. The third cubes have the numbers 3 through 8. Through to the last cubes, it has 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I worked with a computer programmer so that I could have a list of 36,157 different 9-digit numbers. A unique 9-digit number for every day of 99 years, including all the leap year days. And the piece comes with a set of 9 books, each encompassing 11 of the years. So daily, you have the option of turning the cubes every day to its respective 9-digit number. So, and there's a Facebook community where we comment on the things that we observe in the numbers patterns that we see. And it's really cool to be able to participate with this wherever we live. I think it was really perfect timing with the pandemic. So the piece ranges from 2021 through 2119. It's meant to be something you pass on to someone else because each of us might not live 99 years. And then talking about the piece I'm doing here I'm gonna do here in Westbrook for USM. I've been, ever since I heard that I was your artist in residence, I've been working on this piece since September 1st because I'm really good at time management, and I knew it was gonna take a very long time to make this piece. So I did whatever I could in my studio. And then I moved into the site November 1st, even before my residency officially started, also because I knew I needed that extra time, which has been really great. So I've been able to get a head start and kind of make the foundation before the piece happens. So it's easier to have volunteers pick up a brush and just paint, or pick up some scissors and just cut something out, or paste something. It's all kinds of things. Anyway, what I'm doing in Westbrook, in the former Westbrook High School gym, which is now a big activities room for a senior housing place. It's a wonderful place. This space is 56 across by 86 feet long. So it's perfect for one of my singular interactive installation ideas, like this one, Memoir 2. I'm building a neighborhood in the gym. And my original concept was that I would build 9 rooms, each one of those 9 different colors I showed you about. And inside each room would be a desk chair, an armchair, and a TV console projecting from a video, which I'll get to in a second. And on each desk would be a book that is also respective color. So for example, there'd be a red room, and the walls and the ceiling and the floor would be red. And so would all the furniture in it, and so would the book. And there's a blue room, and so on. And I'm asking people to go in the red room, and you open your book, and I'm asking you to write a memory in the book that the color red inspires. What does the color red spark in your mind as far as a memory sometime during your life from the moment you're born to the present moment? And write that in the book. And my intention is to publish eventually after I've presented this concept, perhaps in other ways in the future, because I see this as being ongoing as well. My intention is to publish 9 books, the red books, the orange book, the yellow book, the green book, etc. Each book an anthology of memories that were written per color. Well, like I mentioned, the site often determines what the piece is going to be like. And in this particular site, there is a big rug that I could not remove. So if I were to do this piece in the mill, it would literally be that you're walking on the mill floor to get into each of these houses, into each of these rooms. And you would just step into the room. The way I have to protect the rug, I'm actually developing the whole floor of the piece. The whole floor becomes a character in this installation. So I covered the floor with plastic, and I devised this neighborhood that's kind of like a cul-de-sac. And I'm building a boardwalk so that people can, and it's 8 foot wide so people can pass each other. There's a little park in the middle with benches, and all of the boardwalk and the benches and the trees I would like to make in the park are like a deep medium gray, so kind of like a neutral place. And then each of the rooms are now houses, and each house is wholly one of the colors, like I said. And because I have to develop the ground, each house has a yard now. And I thought it would be really boring to just give everybody grass that's a different one, its color. So it developed into the situation, which I really like, where each property has kind of a different personality and psychology and sociology. Each property is very different. So at the pink property, people really like lawn ornaments. And on the black property, they're quite minimalist. So they just have beautiful black clover and stones. And the orange property, they are people who really like to collect things. So they have so much stuff on their yard that they don't actually have any grass growing. And in the yellow house, they really like hedges. And the property line they share with the orange folks, those hedges are really tall because they don't like looking at the stuff that the orange people are collecting. So there's all these like different things that are happening between the houses, and they all kind of know each other, and they all have different personalities. And that's made it so much more fun, but also so much more stuff to paint and make, which is why I'm really encouraging people to become involved with this. So here's some of the furniture, and with the different personalities, it made sense to give everyone different kinds of desks and furniture based on their aesthetic, which is really fun. And there's a lot of different ways that people can help. This is some of the clover that I've cut out already. So people can art assist at the site. At the beginning of each month, the gallery sends out a notice of the hours that I'm working at the site. And whenever I'm not at the site, and you just contact me to sign up, because I do need to know at least a little bit ahead of time that you're coming. And then anytime that I'm here, people are welcome to come and cut clover with me or cut out leaves. And what I've done is I set up a little area for people that can come in here anytime. And it's a self-serve art assistant situation with instructions that are written out. And if you don't have a card, so long as I happen to be here, I can let you in. You just have to do a secret knock on the door, which we just made up about an hour ago. The painting students upstairs made it up. It goes like this. Did you hear that? It sounds like you did. So if you make that knock, I'll know that you're here to cut clover or something else with me. And I really appreciate it. And then another thing that I'm doing is, I heard that we might be having weather, but starting this Friday, on Fridays from 3 to 5 p.m. and from 6 to 8 p.m., I'm hoping to have a clover circle or a grass circle, whatever I'm making next. It'll be really fun and we'll get a lot done if we can sit and focus on it. And also there's other individual projects that people can do. I would really love to incorporate, for example, in the houses, monochromatic paintings that some of you students have done. Like for example, say you did a painting, wanted to do a painting for the pink house. I would tell you all I know about the people that live there, and then you can create a painting that you think that they would like, using only pink. If it's a water kind of painting, then you could add water to make pink to light pink. But if you're using oils or acrylics, you can add white to make it pink to light pink. I know you understand what I'm trying to say. And then there's also lots of opportunities to make sculptural things, like the lawn ornament people. I really want pink flamingos and gnomes and stuff, but it also could be wiggy, weird things and unique things, and pottery for the blue house, and little sculptural things. And I also made fancy cup holders for each of the desks that are inspired by their aesthetics. So there's all kinds of things you can do. I guess that's it. I'm gonna start my theory now. And I really appreciate you listening. I wish I could see your faces.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I know one of the drawbacks of this format is we can't see everyone's faces. Just a reminder, everyone, if you have a question for Amy, please put it in the Q&A box. I can see that we do have 2 questions. I'm just going to start with the first one in the Q&A, if that's all right. Actually, no, I'm going to start by just saying, Amy, thank you so much for guiding us through that presentation of your work. I see so many through lines of your work where I'm just reminded of different artists like Bruce Naumann's walking in an exaggerated manner around the perimeter of a square, or Tara Donovan's accumulative installations, or Rikrit Taravanit's participatory installations. But I feel like your installations sort of have elements of all of those, but are still uniquely your own, because I know that you also often have sort of a clandestine autobiographical element. So I'm just so excited to be working with you here at USM, and I hope everyone else is as well. And now I will get to the question. And so Linda McCann Olson says that, Amy, your work is astonishing. I've been fortunate enough to visit several installations. Audience participation is a delight and so well designed. You actually witness a great deal of that participation. Please share a bit about those observations and how they inform your future work. Thank you.
So one of the things that I really love that I've observed is that I tend to have what I call fixers and rebels that participate with my work. Over the years, the people who have followed my work, you know, once they came to one biennial, they tried the best to come to future ones, and they became used to the fact that I was going to be giving them instructions before they approach my work and be asked to do something. And you know, so I'd always have people who were new to my work and would have a lot of questions and concerns. Can I really touch that? I can really do that? You really want me to do that, really? And then some time, you know, just have questions about what it was I was asking them to do. And I've found that most people who would come again and again, they would try really hard to follow my instructions, because I think the feedback I got was that they're trying to get like the full effect of what I'm putting out there. And then there was always a certain like a number of people who on purpose do kind of the opposite of what I'm asking. And I call them the rebels. And then there's also people who would try to do what I'm asking them to do, but they would interpret it, what I was saying. And I never, ever interjected with anybody's participation unless they were doing something that could be harmful physically to the piece or to themselves. Because some of my pieces had like kinetic parts that could bop you in the head if you weren't following directions, or you could inadvertently break something or whatever. So I only interjected when something like that was happening. But yes, there were rebels, people who would on purpose do something different. For example, the piece with the pony beads, the 61,000 plus pony beads. There were a number of people to be rebellious who would, for example, put blue beads in the yellow jar. And then there were the fixers. And the fixers are the people who take those beads, those offending beads, out of the wrong jar and put them back in the right jar. And it's always fun to just observe that. Sometimes fixers would spend hours rectifying things that all the rebels did, or all the people who interpret things. They just couldn't say anything that's really out of place, and that was really fun to see. One of the things that informs with my new work, you see, in the mill, I could control a lot of things. Control things to a point, meaning as I install them, I can control it up to that point. And then through my signage, I could, to a certain extent, get people to kind of follow an audience path to keep them safe and ask them to do certain things. In a museum, you really don't have that same kind of control. And it's been really, really fun being able to give up that control and like to not have to worry about that, because I had to wear kind of a lot of different hats while I had the mid exhibits, from docent to curator to security guard, all these different people. So with a museum exhibit, I can put the instructions up there, and anything that I present has to be something that it would be like impossible for anybody to get hurt. And then with that kind of piece, anything can happen, and anything does, because most of the folks who come to the museum exhibits have never been to one of my exhibits before, and a lot of people aren't used to the even reading through it. There tends to be more rebels at the museum exhibit. It's more of like an even. So it's like a constant equal battle between the rebels and the fixers at the museum exhibit. With a piece like Memoir 2, I really don't see how, I never know what's going to happen, but I don't really see people rebelling, because I'm just asking people to write their memories. So I don't see how any of that can kind of affect this piece, but that's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Amy. We only have a few minutes left, and we've gotten a lot of questions. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to combine a few of them here. Quite a few people are asking about the significance of numbers in your work, if you have a favorite number, and especially what is the significance of the number 9 to you?
So before I knew I was honest, I thought I was gonna be an engineer. My only interest was mathematics, and it was through some main high school art teachers that I figured out I'm an artist, and numbers still are entered into my work. Obviously, I love the number 9, and as you probably noticed, a lot of the pieces with large numbers have that number throughout it. I thought by integrating a number as a common thread throughout the whole biennial project, which I see this 18-year project as my opus, I thought incorporating the number 9 as something that would add unity and symmetry to the whole piece, and also with any of the interactive things I'm asking people to do. If I'm asking you to do something repeatedly, I felt like asking someone to do something less than 9 times wouldn't give as much impact as I wanted. Whereas asking people to do something more than 9 times, I was asking too much of the person. So 9 is just a perfect, absolutely wonderful number.
I'm also a fan of the number 9, so
Yeah.
I appreciate this. I do have a practical question. Can USM faculty and staff also sign up to participate in the making in addition to students?
Absolutely, please, and thank you. Just email me your preferred dates. I think everyone receives the sign up email.
I think so. I'm
And
going
you
to
can
drop
also bring classes. You can also bring classes, and I can get a lot of people working at the same time.
Okay. And we have so many good questions here. Someone, Gerald Walsh, is asking about which artists have been an inspiration to you in your career.
I think the biggest inspirations right now are Frida Kahlo and Eva Hess, because they made art through difficult physical challenges, and I think if they can do it, I can do it. I would say that.
And I think this is a good one to end on, and then we'll close so that we can be respectful of everyone's time. Nancy Walters says that a lot of times participating in your work feels therapeutic to me. Is that part of your goal for the audience members?
Yes, I actually, Memoir 2 is probably the busiest thing that I'll ever make or that I've ever made up to this point in this presentation. But all my previous works, they're minimal for a reason. Minimal shapes, minimal colors. It's because I I want people to be most apt to see in the work and the participation. I'm asking them to do things that are going on in their own lives. To be more apt to see those things, and the more simple I make it. And I absolutely am trying to make a place for people to think about those things. So yes.
Great. I mean, I think we're at a good place to close. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, Amy, that you didn't get to mention? I know you've been talking a while, but maybe.
Only that you're all awesome, and if to all of you students in the audience, I'm so appreciative of your skill on the bus. You're all able to text and things while the bus is moving. I tried it once and I got so bus sick. I'm just so impressed with your ability to do that. And I just think you're all just fantastic.
I also think the students are fantastic, and we are also thankful to have you, Amy, as our artist in residence. Thank you so much for this talk. As a reminder, anyone can email me if you have any questions. My email, I will drop it one more time in the chat, but it's cat.z.buckley@maine.edu. And you can also email Amy, whose email is in the chat, amy@amystacycurtis.com, to set up a time to help create this installation in Westbrook. Bring your friends, families, anyone who wants to be a part of creating this has an opportunity to lend their voice, and it's going to be really reflective of the community in its final installation or iteration. So thank you everybody so much, and thank you again, Amy. Have a good night, okay?
Bye.